Hello, good people. Welcome back to the Kuhb Games YouTube channel. We are here to finish out Pac-Man week in style with a tier list video. This is the first one that I've actually been able to come to an agreement with in my head that would be a good idea for a tier list video for the channel. Everything else, it just kind of seemed a little too cheesy or whatever. It didn't feel like good content to me, but you know, obviously content is subjective, but this one feels like a good idea. We are ranking pretty much everything that I have ever seen in a Pac-Man list or could conceive of being playable in a Pac-Man list. We have 151 cards here, which is nice because it's the same as Generation 1 for Pokemon. So this is going to take a while. I haven't put really any thought into the rankings here, except for a few cards that I play with a lot. And I was like, oh yeah, well, these will go here. So I'm going to be reasoning these out as I go. And of course, things can move around. But of course, if you disagree with some things, or if you think I missed something, please let me know. Let's get into it. So we're going to actually go with the Pac-Man monsters first. And then everything else from there is kind of just going to go. We're going to do all monsters, then all spells, and then all traps. So 8-Claws Scorpion is not a terrible card. Whenever it attacks a face-down defense position monster, its attack becomes 2,400 during damage calculation, and then you can flip it back down. It doesn't actually have an effect when it flips up, but close enough to Pac-Man monster. So it's basically just a bad Mystic Swordsman level 2. So I'm going to start it out probably in C tier for now. You're not ever like actively looking to play this card, but it's not the worst thing in the world. So it's not bad, it's not trash. So C tier seems like a good start to me. And if we feel that needs to move up or down, we can go from there. Cobra Man Sakuzi. This is an 800 attacker, 1400 defense, level 3. When it's flipped face up, you get to look at all spell and trap cards that are set on your opponent's side of the field, and then return them to their original position. This card is not good. It's not utter trash, I guess. 800 is actually a decent attack for a Pac-Man monster, and it is a level 3, so it gets under gravity bind and level limit area. So I don't think I want to put it in like actual trash tier, but D seems fine to me. Then we get Pac-Man itself, Des Lakuta. We're just gonna drop this on up in staple. If you're not playing Lakuta, you're not really playing Pac-Man. I know I've said that in almost every video, if not every video at this point during the deck profile. You play Lakuta in this deck. It is your best Pac-Man monster. I guess Swarm of Scarabs is like a close second or whatever. But Lakuta is really the reason to play the deck, so I'm going to opt to put that in staple rather than S. Fushio Richie, on the other hand, trash tier. This card is absolute just garbage. I don't really think I need to say anything else about that. Giant Axe Mummy on the thumbnail. Is this card actually good? No, it's going to join Fushio Richie down here. So Giant Axe Mummy is a level 5, 1700 attack, 2000 defense. Of course, you can flip it face down once per turn. And if the attack of a monster on your opponent's side of the field that attacks this card in face down defense position is lower than the defense of this monster, the attacking monster is destroyed. Well, if you tributed a monster to set something, your opponent probably thinks it's fairly big anyway, so they might not attack into it. And then once it's flipped face up, and it gets its effect, your opponent's just never going to attack into it again with a smaller monster. And its defense really isn't even that good. Like, if you're going to play this thing, or if you're going to make this card, at least give it like 2500 defense or something like that, not just 2000. You may as well just play Guardian Sphinx, which is a card that we'll get to a little later, but Giant Axe Mummy is just hilariously one of the worst Pac-Man monsters. I've heard some people describe it as just one of the worst monsters. It's really, really bad. You should never like even consider playing this card. Golem Sentry, not going to actually put that stapled here because I don't believe it is necessary to play in a Pac-Man deck. However, if you are going to be going like as competitively as possible, you do want Golem Sentry in your deck. Very good card, fits the strategy perfectly. If it was a level 3, that would be ideal, obviously, so then it could attack under gravity bind and level limit area B. But I think S tier is a good place for Golem Sentry. Guardian Sphinx. This is a weird one. The card's not bad. So 2400 defense is nice, 1700 attack is pretty good, and the effect is really good. The only problem is you have to tribute for it. And a lot of times you're going to be tribute setting, so you're going to lose a monster for it for no value like immediately. Your opponent can then knock it, so then you're down a monster plus the Guardian Sphinx. Just a lot can go wrong with this card. It doesn't attack under level limit or gravity bind. It's not a bad card by any means. I do think it is a tier better than 8 Claws Scorpion. Like, you could conceivably play one of these just for fun in a Pac-Man list or something and still win a tournament with it. I think it's not the best, but it's not, I guess I would put it slightly above average maybe. The card can definitely do some powerful things and it has some good stats. It's just not ideal to play in a deck. Guardian Statue. This one's interesting. It's basically just Golem Sentry with worse stats. And the only difference in stats is the defense is 400 less. So I actually kind of want to put this in A tier for now. You're never going to see it in a deck because it's outclassed by Golem Sentry, but it's so close to just as good as Golem Sentry that I'll put this as A tier for now. Well, no, you never want to these effects. I'm going to put it down here with Guardian Sphinx. Let's put it in B. It is a good effect. Obviously, we have a monster that's almost the exact same in S tier. It's just you're never going to be using this really ever just because it is outclassed. So Guardian Statue, Guardian Sphinx, kind of on the same level here, I suppose. I think Guardian Statue is probably a better card than Guardian Sphinx. Just being outclassed, I think, bumps it down a tier. Seems good to me. Stealth Bird, now this one I do believe is A tier. Better than Guardian Sphinx, Guardian Statue. Definitely better than 8 Claw Scorpion. Stealth Bird is a card that I used to think was kind of useless in Pac-Man, so I would probably have it down here in like C or D tier. And then I started realizing how good the little burn package in the deck is. So I've been including Stealth Bird. I think it's a good card. I think it should be played at least at 1 if you're going for like the most competitive Pac-Man deck possible. You're definitely not going to be playing 3, but you could be playing 1 or 2, and I think it is a very good inclusion in those decks. Medusa Worm, I think of this on the same level as Stealth Bird. Now this is kind of interesting for the Guardian Statue debate here. Medusa Worm is basically Swarm of Scarabs, but worse stats. But I think it can go in A tier rather than B tier because you might actually play this one still. A lot of times you do want that extra Swarm of Scarabs effect. So you'll be playing the 3 copies of Swarm of Scarabs, and then you'll be playing the 1 or 2 extra Medusa Worms, whereas for Guardian Statue, sure, you might play the 3 Golem Sentries, but you're never going to play the Guardian Statue with it. Also, Medusa Worm does get under Gravity Bind Level Limit Area B, so that's something that's not holding it back like it's holding it back for Guardian Statue. So I do think Medusa Worm is a very good one. Gonna go for A tier. The next one is the Moai Interceptor Cannons. This card does not have an effect when it's flipped face up, but you can flip it face down once per turn, of course, just like all of these monsters. It has 1100 attack, 2000 defense. It's basically Gravekeeper Spy, right? Why does no one play this card over Gravekeeper Spy? I think that's pretty obvious, but this card's not bad. You just won't ever play it. It attacks, it defends, it does all of that, but it does literally nothing else. I do think it's better than Cobra Man, so I am going to put it in C, right above Cobra Man Sakuzi, right here next to 8 Claws Scorpion. Scorpion has a little bit better utility, I suppose, but you're never gonna really consider either of these, let's be honest. Royal Keeper, a lot along the lines of the Interceptor Cannons. This card's fine. It defends, it attacks. Whenever it's flipped face up, it gains 300 attack and defense for the turn, so it goes up to a 1900, 2000 card. Unfortunately, this, like the others, does not work. Well, it's worded kind of weirdly, actually. It does gain the stats, but it gains them after damage calculation. So it doesn't really work in battle how you want it to. So you would never really consider this card, but it's also not bad necessarily. So C tier seems good for it. Now we get to Swarm of Locusts. This is the one, I know I said I haven't really thought about any of these. This is the one that I've thought about sort of extensively. Originally, I was just going to put it in the trash tier. I don't think I'm there now that I'm looking at these other cards. Swarm of Locusts, I don't think is actually good in Pac-Man. I know it performed pretty well in the insect version of the deck here and there, but I think those are kind of anecdotes. The more that I played with this card, the less that I was impressed by it. I ended up cutting it more and more. I didn't want it in the side because you would think it would be good as an answer for Decree, but it's not really. If your opponent has Decree up, a lot of times you can't protect this unless you have like exactly level limit area B. And if you can't protect it, your opponent's just going to run over it and you're never going to kill the Decree. So there are better options, I think, for Decree. But I don't think the card is trashed here. It does still have some utility. I just don't think you should ever really consider it for a deck. So I think maybe, is it down here in the C tier or is it in the B tier with Guardian Sphinx and Guardian Statue? I don't think it's as bad as like, you would consider it, I think, before you would consider any of these three. So maybe that's good enough to put it in the B tier. I think it's really close. You could go B or C, and I think it could be fine either way. I think this might be one of the most controversial ones here, but Swarm of Locusts, I think I'm just going to go B tier. It's okay. It has utility. You can play it, and I'll be like, you probably shouldn't play that card, but I won't fault you too much. I get it. So maybe B tier. I'm just not a fan of it. I'm probably not going to include it in any of my lists unless I'm going for like insects specifically or something like that. Swarm of Scarabs. This one, I had it at a 3 of in all of my decks. So clearly it's either staple or S tier. I'm thinking S tier right off because I don't think there are... No, there's literally no reason to not run this as a 3 of in any Pac-Man deck, I think. I think this could be included as a staple alongside Deslakuta, and then however you, like, you need to play 3 of each of these. Competitively speaking, you need to play 3 of each of these because they're just the best Pac-Man monsters that you can play in your deck. Past that, you can decide how you want to build your monsters. I think Golem Sentry is really close to being staple, but the existence of Medusa Worm maybe means you don't have to play 3 Golem Sentry. Maybe you can mix it up with Medusa Worm, Stealth Bird, however you want to there. But for a dedicated Pac-Man deck, Swarm of Scarabs I think is totally fine to just put in here as a staple card. Now we get to Wandering Mummy. Oh boy. You can flip this card into face down defense position once per turn during your main phase. After you use this effect to flip it down, you can rearrange face down defense position monsters in your main monster zones and then return them to face down defense position. This is absolutely useless in paper unless you're like a really good shuffler. I wouldn't recommend anyone shuffling under the table, so I wouldn't use that as a way to be able to do this. That just sets off alarm bells with a lot of people. But if you're actually doing this in paper, your opponents can often just kind of figure out where the card is that you're removing around, so they can kind of keep an eye on the important ones and still know where it is. I guess this gets a little bit more utility online because like you can pick up the cards in your hand or you can banish them face down and then like put them back in whatever order that you want. But let's be real. 1500 attack, 1500 defense. It's a level 4, so it doesn't get under gravity bind or level limit area B. Come on, trashed here. This card is useless. Don't play this. Desert Taper, I think is how you pronounce it. I used to call it Desert Appear, and then I just got smart and I realized that the animal that's on this is a tapir. This card is not good. So it is a flip effect. It's not a Pac-Man monster. The Wandering Mummy was the last of those. But yeah, it's got the flip effect. Flip one face up monster on the field into face down defense position. You can't target itself. So you get to flip a monster down, and then you can make the manual change to flip it up, and then you can flip it back down. So the only way that this is going to be useful is if your monster just happened to be stuck face up or something. Yeah, don't play this card. Also trashed here, unfortunately. Now we get to some more interesting ones here. And we get to really have some debates. I think these might be controversial as well. Magician of Faith. This also may move some of these monsters around as well, because some of these are going to look weird in some tiers with some of these other cards. But Magician of Faith is okay. I don't like it in the builds that I play. I think if you're going to play Moth and Mask of Darkness alike, that's kind of why I have them grouped together. You have to play them with Tsukuyomi and just kind of like do some sort of loop thing with it. I think this works out in the decks like Master Lock, Flip Control, stuff like that. But in a Pac-Man deck, you're kind of already looping stuff and just gaining incremental advantage like that. Why play Moth and Mask of Darkness when that means you kind of have to play a Tsukuyomi, when you could just not. I know like Moth is a very powerful card, just on the base level, but in the Pac-Man deck, I'll put Moth B tier. And I think I'm going to go Mask of Darkness B tier as well. I think these are pretty close to each other. I wouldn't include them, but they do have, you know, powerful effects. And I wouldn't like super fault anybody for including them. I think they're totally fine if you want to go that route with Pac-Man. Cool, but I don't really think it's super advisable. And I would play all of these other cards above them before that. Now we get to Grave Oja. Whenever you flip summon a monster, your opponent is dealt 300 points of damage. It is a 1600 attacker, which is really nice. Your opponent also can't attack it if you have a face down monster. So this card has utility. It provides a clock. It is a level 4, which is a little awkward, but I think this gets it out of D tier. Obviously this card's not very good. I wouldn't play it. But I think C tier is totally fine for it. The more I'm thinking about it, I kind of want 8 Claw Scorpion up here, because it's like these are just kind of cards with no utility really, and 8 Claw Scorpion has some sort of utility. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna move 8 Claw Scorpion up. I think the card's actually just not terrible. It's not good obviously, but not terrible. Sangan, easy staple. You play this in every Pac-Man deck, just do it. It's really not hard. It searches literally everything. It's a good monster to set for knock. Turn 1, so you don't lose any of your Pac-Man monsters. It's your biggest attacker in a lot of Pac-Man decks. It's a level 3. It does everything. Just play Sangan. Pretty easy. Morphing Jar, I think, is very good. Is it S tier good? I don't think so. I think it's more along the lines of A tier. I do like it more than like Magician of Faith, Mask of Darkness. I've been very impressed with Morphing Jar. Not sure it's Golem Sentry good, but having the one Morphing Jar can help you in those games where your opponent, you know, has an early heavy storm that you're not able to deal with. You get a little behind, you need to reset, or you get in a late game, your opponent has cards in hand, you don't. You can just refuel with Morphing Jar. I've been very, very impressed with having one copy. It rotates in and out of the deck sometimes, but whenever I do play it, I do think it is very good, and oftentimes I do try to find a spot for it, so I think that's deserving of A tier. Cyber Jar, on the other hand, I have not been impressed with really at all. I wouldn't play it in the main, and in the side, it's okay. You can side it in against certain decks, like it's fine against Reasoning Gate and stuff like that. I really tested it out for the GGP that I played Pac-Man in, and it just kind of underwhelmed me, but it is a powerful card. I can see the use for it, so I'm going to put it as side deck good. I do think it is a side deck only card. I would not play this in the main again, but I think it's just powerful enough that side deck good seems right for it. Tsukiyomi, I don't think I really need to talk about this one a whole lot. I'm going to put it in B tier just to go along with Magician of Faith and Mask of Darkness. It's playable in the deck. It's not awful, but I think you have to play it alongside some of these. I guess what Tsukiyomi really has going for it, it does flip down Thousand Eyes Restrict, which is really nice. So Tsukiyomi, pretty good card. Exiled Force, a card that I haven't really played. It's been in a few of my lists, I guess, that I've played on the channel, but I don't play it a whole lot, so this might surprise people. I'm going to put it in A tier. I think Exiled Force is actually quite good in Pac-Man, especially if you decide to go the Giant Rat route, which I don't hate, actually. And that's the card we're going to be talking about next. Actually, we're going to go through all the recruiters next. That's pretty cool. So I don't hate Exiled Force. I think it's pretty good. Generally, I decide to not go the Giant Rat route, so I don't actually play Exiled Force. Though I could see playing it in the main. If you're not playing it in the main, I could see playing it in the side. Has a lot of good value. But as a main deck card, I'll put it in A tier. Next, we get up to the recruiters. Giant Rat. Giant Rat and Mystic Tomato are the two best. So it's really kind of like, where do you want to rank those? I've had some success with both. Again, if you want to play Giant Rat, you unlock stuff like Exiled Force. You get to your Lakutas more often. It can also search up Golem Sentry. Can also search up Medusa Worm. So you get to do, you definitely get to play that. So you have access to almost all of your decks. So I think Giant Rat is actually the best one. Tomato is good because it can just directly search Scarabs, and it can search Sangan to get the others, but I'm going to put Rat in A tier, and Mystic Tomato, I'm going to split these. I'm going to put Tomato in B tier. I think it's a little less good than Rat, just because Rat gets you to your best card, and it gets you to, like, pseudo-best card. Like, Golem Sentry can a lot of times just tag in for Swarm of Scarabs, but it can also just get a Medusa Worm, and if you play Rat, you play Medusa Worm. You also play Exile Force, so Rat can just get you into something to kill a monster as well, and you don't have to go through the Sandgan route. So I think Rat is actually better than Mystic Tomato, though Mystic Tomato is not bad. Howling Insect, this is where things get a little weird. Howling Insect in a competitive Pac-Man deck is only going to search out Swarm of Scarabs. So it's completely outclassed by both Mystic Tomato and Giant Rat, so I'm just going to put it in C tier. Same with Pyramid Turtle, just doesn't search out enough. So is Pyramid Turtle, is it D tier? Is it just worse than Howling Insect? Because like Howling Insect, if you look up here, can even get Swarm of Locusts and 8-Claw Scorpion, whereas Pyramid Turtle is only going to get you Deslakuta. I guess you could play a zombie package if you really wanted to. I don't know. I don't think that's really that good, but I'll leave it in C tier. Recruiters are only so bad. Tribe Infecting Virus. This is not a card that I generally main, and I've seen it in main decks. I guess if Exile Force is going to be a main deck card, Tribe can be a main deck card, so let's just put it in A tier. Tribe is a very powerful card. I do opt to include it in most of my sides. I know I didn't for the purposes of Friday's video for Pac-Man Week, but Tribe is just a very powerful card. It helps, deal with Thousand Eyes Restrict. It deals with Jinzo. Just whatever problematic monster that you needed to deal with, Tribe is there for you. Very good insurance card, so we'll put that in A tier. Breaker, I think, is strictly a side deck card. You're just not going to main Breaker, but it is one of the best cards that you can put in the side because it's one of the best cards to out Decree, and it's also just a really, really solid card, so we'll put it in side deck good. Lava Golem is an interesting one. It is a way of dealing with Jinzo, and it just deals passive damage. So when you're a lockdown deck and you want to stop your opponent from attacking, Lava Golem is good for you. That said, it's kind of outclassed. Like, you have Exiled Force, you have Tribe, even like Snatch Steal sometimes is better. You have Cyberjar as well. I wouldn't really play Lava Golem. I don't think it's awful, but I'm going to put it in side deck bad just because it's outclassed by so many cards. Trapmaster is an interesting one. It is very good at outing Decree. However, we're not a Rota deck, so I think it is outclassed by like MST, Breaker, Double Snare even. So I'm going to put Trapmaster in side deck bad. Not that it's a bad card, it's just outclassed by too many cards to make it viable. Jowgen, the Spiritualist, is very good, I would say. It's been a very, very good option for me against like the Reasoning Gate deck specifically. Not only can it just shut the deck down completely, but it can also deal with their board if they happen to set up before you got to, put your defensive measures into play. So it's very good if your opponent lands a Jinzo, something like that. So I've been a big fan of Jowgen the Spiritualist. I'm going to put it inside deck good. BLS is interesting. Wherever BLS goes, Thunder Dragon is going to go also, because you're going to be playing these together in a Pac-Man deck if you decide to go the Chaos route. BLS is a very, very powerful card. However, it forces you to play Thunder Dragon. And may force you to play some other lights in the deck as well. Probably Moth, if you're really going that way. But BLS, I'm just not a believer in the Chaos Pac-Man decks really at all. You don't want to play Thunder Dragon because you don't really want to play cards that just don't do anything. You want all of your cards to do something. And you just don't need the BLS effect. A lot of times it's going to be locked under an L-Lab or a Gravity Bind or something anyway. I don't know. I'm not a believer in BLS. We're going to see this in the C tier, which, that might blow a lot of people's minds. But yeah, BLS, C tier. I'm going to put Thunder Dragon right next to it just because those go together. You're never going to play one without the other. So I would say put them in the same tier. Seems good to me. Night Assailant doesn't really do much. It's another one of those cards you can play with Tsukiyomi. But again, if you're playing Tsukiyomi, you're playing probably Moth, Mask of Darkness. Night Assailant is your third option. It's okay, but you already have your Pac-Man monsters to do all of that stuff, especially destroy monsters. You can just play more Medusa Worms instead of playing Night Assailant. That way you don't have to use Tsukiyomi as well. You're not really playing discard stuff other than Magic Jammer, something like that from time to time. But even then, you got to play more flips for this to even get things back. So I'm not a believer in Night Assailant really at all, and I think I will actually put it below the other effect monsters. So just put it down here with BLS and Thunder Dragon. Kinetic Soldier. Kinetic Soldier's good. I usually don't play it because I feel like I have a good enough matchup against the warrior decks anyway, and it's like so against Earth aggro. So it's definitely not a card that you need, but it is a level 3 that is pretty good. It gets under Gravity Bind and level limit. It attacks for a lot. 1350 is actually a pretty high stat. Not to mention, you know, whenever it gains the huge attack stat, whenever it attacks into a warrior, it gets even bigger. So this card isn't bad. I prefer to go other routes, but I would put this inside deck good. I think this is not super like outclassed by anything. It kind of does its own thing. I just generally choose to go other ways. Kaiku, the Ghost Destroyer, is up next. Kaiku is not great. I think there are better ways to deal with Turbo, and really that's all Kaiku's going to be doing here. And mostly it's just going to sit on the field and be a floodgate. I think you can just do better than Kaiku. I'm going to actually put this inside deck bad. Kaiku obviously is a good card here, but it's all right. Spirit Reaper's up next. This is a card that can go with Pyramid Turtle, so I guess that is another thing that Pyramid Turtle could grab if you really want to, but you're never just playing this. Like, I think Spirit Reaper is a side deck card mostly for aggro matchups. You don't really want it in the main. It is kind of cool to pick off cards from your opponent's hand, but you just don't need to do that really in Pac-Man. Especially if you need to attack with it. I don't know. Not a believer in Spirit Reaper. I'm going to put it in side deck bad. Morphing Jar number 2. This card's actually pretty okay. Generally, you are playing a small number of monsters, so it can backfire on you a little bit, but it's totally fine if you want to go this route instead of Jowgen or whatever against RGT. So I'll put it in side deck good. It's a fine option. Legendary Jujitsu Master. This is a card that I've seen in some side decks. I don't really have a whole lot of play with it myself in Pac-Man. This is not the option that you want, I don't think. I think there are just so many other ways you can go, so I'm going to put it inside deck bad. Sinister Serpent is a card that has caught my attention recently. I do think it's better than a lot of people give it credit for in Pac-Man, especially because I like to play Magic Jammer in the main. I like to play Divine Wrath in the side, and that's because, you know, with Deslakuta, you can build up so much card advantage, or you're taking out your opponent's cards, so you're upping cards that way from card advantage, that you can kind of mitigate the loss from those cards. But if you are playing enough of them, Sinister Serpent's really good, and it even allows you to maybe introduce something like Raigeki Break or something like that if you really feel the need to. Outside of that, Sinister Serpent's not great, and if you're only playing a few cards that you've already, you know, your deck's already sort of built to mitigate the cost of, you probably just don't need it. So I'm going to put it in B tier because I think it is better than a lot of people give it credit for, but it's also just kind of, it would need more testing, and you would have to like build your deck quite differently, I think, to really maximize out on it. And it is a card that sometimes just doesn't do anything. So I'm going to put it in B tier. I see the utility, but I'm not sold on it. Masked Sorcerer. I've seen this and White Magical Hat in a few lists. I think these cards are really cool, but man, are they not good. Masked Sorcerer specifically, they're not outright trash, but like, you're going to play Spirit Reaper over White Magical Hat, and you're going to play, and like, Masked Sorcerer is a level 4, so it doesn't even get under level limit and Gravity Bind. Yeah, I mean, they're not zeros, but they're not good. Both of these are going to visit Cobra Man down here. White Magical Hat can at least get under Gravity Bind and level limit, but you're not playing any of these cards, let's be real. Dark Dust Spirit is interesting. This is generally a sideboard card for Pac-Man. With all of your stuff being set, you don't really care about it blowing up all face-up monsters. That's basically just a Raigeki. See Acid Rain. But yeah, Dark Dust Spirit is just an expensive Raigeki. You do have to tribute for it. It's not the best. I see the utility there, but side deck bad. You don't need this card. Arsenal Bug really impressed me. In the insect video, I'm gonna be honest, I thought this card was just an absolute flop, and now I actually kind of don't think it is. You do play Swarm of Scarabs. Like in a regular Pac-Man deck, you just have Swarm of Scarabs, and that's the problem. You're not going to be playing DNA Surgery in like the most competitive Pac-Man deck possible. So Arsenal Bug, you know, I'm sorry, but like Pyramid Turtle, Howling Insect, Gravewood, all of these cards I think are better, unfortunately, than Arsenal Bug. So I'm going to put Arsenal Bug down in D tier. against where my heart wants to go. I want to bump up Arsenal Bug, but in a competitive Pac-Man list, it's just not going to happen. If you want to play Scarabs and Locusts, you know, and probably needs Howling Insect as well, cool, but it's going to be a more memey version of Pac-Man. So Arsenal Bug, I'm sorry, but you got to go in D tier. Cyberstein, side deck good. This is basically a Jowgen. A lot of times you're going to get Last Warrior from another planet, but, you know, you can also, I mean, it's just a good toolbox card. Like, it's really, really good against the decks that it's good against, and that's going to be your combo decks like RGT, really good against Library, Empty Jars, stuff like that. Yeah, I would put it as side deck good, and not really much more to say about Cyberstein. Chaos Sorcerer, you're never, ever going to play Chaos Sorcerer because you're not going to play BLS. If you are going to go down the Chaos route, you're going to play one BLS. You're just not going to play enough lights to really justify playing more Chaos monsters. So I'm actually going to put it in a lower tier than BLS. I did opt to include it because if you are going to go a Chaos route, it is a card that could conceivably be played in here. So here's a Chaos Sorcerer. Prickle Fairy. Prickle Fairy is not very good. Is it better than these guys? Yeah, it does have a 2000 defense. I'm going to put it right down here with Arsenal Bug. You're not playing Prickle Fairy unless you're playing a dedicated insect deck, and even then, you kind of don't have to. You can play Insect Barrier, stuff like that, but Prickle Fairy is not very good. Then we get to Arsenal Summoner. So Arsenal Summoner does get two of these monsters that I've got up here in B tier, Guardian Sphinx and Guardian Statue, but that was a meme. I mean, Arsenal Summoner on its own is not a terrible card. I wouldn't put it in trash tier. I'll put it in D tier as well. If you're wanting to meme, it's a good card you can include, just like, you know, Arsenal Bug and Prickle Fairy. Okay, so you may be asking, why are there two more monsters now? Well, I mentioned Ryukoki earlier to go along with the Pyramid Turtle, and I'm like, well, you know, if this is going to be a definitive list of all things that could possibly be in a Pac-Man deck, if we're playing Pyramid Turtle, we could play Ryukoki or we could play Vampire Lord as well, very easily. Koki, no. If you're playing Pyramid Turtle, I wouldn't go any farther than Des Lakuta or Spirit Reaper. I think that's good enough. Like, getting your Lakuta is really, really what you want to do. I guess, yeah, Ryukoki is just like, you're a lockdown deck. It doesn't really, you're not looking to attack with it. A lot of times you're not going to be able to attack with it, and it, like, God help, you don't want to draw this thing. That's just a brick and a half. And Vampire Lord, also not trashed here if you are playing Pyramid Turtle, but not even as good as Koki. Yeah, well, I guess Vampire Lord could actually have some more utility out of the side against decks that are playing like a lot of removal and stuff like that. So Vampire Lord might actually be better in this deck than Ryukoki. Some people might fight me over that, but yeah. Here are all the monsters. We have one S tier. We have 3 staples. I think all of these are good for A tier. I could see Guardian Sphinx maybe moving down from B tier, but like, if these are our C tier monsters, I do think Guardian Sphinx is better than these. I think Guardian Statue is better than all of these as well. These are all like one step up from trash. Makes sense to me. And then the trash, yep. All right, so like this for the monsters. Let's move on to the spells. All right, we're starting with Acid Rain from the spells, a card that I didn't even know existed until Petty sent it to me. I think most of the DNA Surgery and Friends cards are going to end up in D tier here. If you're building a competitive Pac-Man list, you're just not going to play DNA Surgery. I know it's sad, but like, you're not going to play Acid Rain without DNA Surgery. Now, I do think that this might be one of the better ones, because it is like a one-sided board wipe, and it also just naturally deals with Jinzo. So this card's actually not the worst thing to do, but you do have to play DNA Surgery really for it to have any effect, and I just don't think that that's the way to go in Pac-Man. So Acid Rain, join the D tier. I'm sorry. I know the card's really cool. I just bought a playset of it. You're not playing it in your competitive Pac-Man deck. I'm sorry. Back to Square One, I think, is an interesting one. The card's not bad, but you're definitely not main decking it. And honestly, in my testing and like the playing for the video with the Guardian deck, I didn't really like it that much. I think there are just better things that you can do. So I'm going to put this in side deck bad. Vengeful Bog Spirit is interesting. Um, a lot of people opt to include cards like this because they're like, oh, your opponent's monster can't attack, and then you can just flip up Swarm of Scarabs and kill it. Yes, you can. But you flip up your Swarm of Scarabs and kill your opponent's monster, and then you can just never attack. So I think Vengeful Bog Spirit is, I think it's a trap, and I actually don't think this card really has any utility in a Pac-Man deck at all. That may seem harsh, but I actually think Vengeful Bog Spirit is just trashed here in this deck. I think this card's absolutely unplayable in Pac-Man. Next up is Card Destruction. This is not what you're looking for. You are not looking to minus yourself in this deck to draw other cards. All of your cards do things. It's not like you're looking for, you know, specific combo pieces or anything like that. You're not looking to fill up your graveyard unless you're playing Thunder Dragon with BLS or something like that. I guess this is a good way to turn on Night Assailant, but why would you even do that? Card Destruction is a very powerful card. This might be trashed here in Pac-Man. This is going to be like the most powerful card and trashed here if I put it there. I'm just trying to think, like, are these cards better? I just can't think of a time when you would ever run Card Destruction in this deck. I have seen it, and that's why it's on this list. But yeah, I'll be aggressive about it. We'll put Card Destruction in trashed here. The card just seems abysmal in Pac-Man. There's just zero reason to play this card. If I'm missing out on something, of course, let me know. But Card Destruction just seems like awful in Pac-Man. Double Snare, however, side deck good. Double Snare I've been very impressed with. Deals with Jinzo, deals with Royal Decree. If only this card was a quick play. We'd be in business. But Double Snare is a good one. I opt to include it a lot. Book of Moon. Here we go. Love this card. And I think this should be in just about every Pac-Man deck. It's just so versatile. It does so much. It's so good. It helps with your game plan. It helps with cards that hurt your game plan. Book of Moon, I'm going to put in the S tier. I think it is very, very, very good in Pac-Man. Book of Taiyu, on the other hand, I think this card's unplayable. Trash tier. Next, we have Ectoplasmer, which is an interesting one. You do flip all of your monsters down, which means you're never going to be attributing anything to Ectoplasmer, which is really cool. It's only going to be removing your opponent's monster, so it's like a removal spell every single turn, which sounds nice until you realize Pac-Man's actually kind of hard on its life total. A lot of times you just have to take some attacks here and there, and you're flipping Solemn Judgments somewhat aggressively in a lot of spots. So Ectoplasmer is just going to burn you out. Is it trashed here? I don't think so. It has utility. You could play this if you played some sort of life gain thing to go along with it, or something like that, or sort of built your deck to utilize it a little better. I think you probably could fit this in there. That said, I don't think you really want to, so I'm going to put it in D tier. Graceful Charity, obviously this is a staple. You're going to play that in every Pac-Man deck. Insect Barrier, this is going to join its DNA Surgery friends right here in the D tier. Level Limit Area B. This S or staple. Gravity Bind, I would say, is not a staple. That one can be moved around. I think Level Limit is a staple. If we're looking at it on like competitive Pac-Man list, you're going to play both copies that you're allowed of Level Limit. So I'm fine with putting that in staple tier. Mask of the Accursed. I understand the utility. It's a pseudo removal spell. It's a pseudo Nightmare Wheel. You're going to burn your opponent. This isn't the worst card actually in the world. It is completely outclassed by Nightmare Wheel, and you generally don't want more of those effects. But I have seen this as a little bit of a replacement for Nightmare Wheel in some sideboards. I wouldn't say that this would ever be a main deck card, but I have seen it in the side decks sometimes because it does get around Royal Decree. I'm going to put it as side deck bad because I just don't think you would ever really want to play this card, but I can understand why people would be drawn to that. Mass Driver is an interesting one. This is, of course, is a side deck card against Burn. It clears Ojama tokens. I think there are just better ways to do this, namely needle sealing. So Mass Driver, while not a bad card really in itself, kind of outclassed, we'll put it in side deck bad. Messenger of Peace. This one's an interesting one. A lot of times this is relegated to the side because you're going to be playing 2 copies of Level Limit, 2 copies of Gravity Bind in the main, but sometimes it can make it into the main. I've seen a lot of people give a good argument for this over Gravity Bind. They do stop somewhat, the same things as far as the meta is concerned, but Messenger of Peace does get around Royal Decree. So I'm gonna opt to put it in B tier here. I think it's got a good argument for being pretty good. It's definitely not a bad card. It's not necessarily outclassed, but generally I would say we're going to be running Level Limit and Gravity Bind over it. And if you feel the need to do extra, you could play Messenger of Peace. That's totally fine. Delinquent Duo, well, clear staple. Machine Duplication. God bless petty bourgeoisie. this is this is such a cool thing. I think this might be worse than all of the other DNA surgery cards. Like Insect Barrier is a lockdown piece. Acid Rain is Raigeki. Even Prickle Fairy is a lockdown piece. Oh, can I put this in trash tier? Yeah, I might get flamed for this one. Machine Duplication, on a competitive level, it's not good. It's not good. Monster Gate, I don't... God. I saw a list with the reasoning in Monster Gate. These are just... No, just don't. Go into the trash tier. I'm going to find reasoning. Here it is. You're also going in the trash tier. Just get out of here. Not good. You know what? Machine Duplication is better than Fushio Richie and Giant Axe Mummy and Vengeful Bog Spirit and Desert Taper. Yeah, okay. It's better than all of these cards. I've seen it with my own eyes do more than these cards will ever do in Pac-Man, so D tier it is. Pot of Greed, easy staple. Premature Burial is an interesting one. I do like Call of the Haunted in this deck a lot, because you can kind of just like decide when to flip it up, but like Prima might actually be better than Call. I'm going to have to try it out some more because the Prima would just die whenever you flip down the monster. One of the things that I hate about Call of the Haunted so much is that whenever you revive your Pac-Man monster and you flip it back down, the call stays, and it just soaks up a slot in your spell and trap zone. And a lot of times that's really bad for you. Those zones are very important. The good thing about Call of the Haunted is you can do it on your opponent's turn, and you can just kind of make sure that everything's safe, and then you can go to your turn and get the value out of it. Whereas Prima, if you bring back like a Lakuta or something, you flip it face down, you don't get to flip it back up immediately. So you don't get the immediate value out of your monster that you're bringing back. So Prima, I'm going to put in the C tier. It's powerful. It's got some stuff going for it. It's really good, like if you're playing Magic Jammer, Divine Wrath, and stuff like that. But I think Call of the Haunted is going to be a little bit better here. So I'm going to go with C tier. And I think that's totally fine. It's not a card you're really looking to play, but you could, and it could be all right. Could that put it in B tier? No. I think it's just too much outclassed by Call, and you just really don't need that much of that effect. I keep looking over this Guardian Sphinx, and I kind of want to demote it. Because, like, Messenger of Peace, I think, is on a higher level than Guardian Sphinx, but I don't think it's, like, up here with Tribe and Morphing Jar and Medusa Worm. Guardian Sphinx, is it better than... It might not be... Well, no, it's quite a bit better than all of these, I think, except maybe Prima. I'm going to leave Guardian Sphinx where it is for now. We'll see where more... where more of these spell and traps end up, and maybe it gets demoted, maybe it doesn't, but B tier for now, sure. Prohibition, side deck bad. This card's awful, but I think it's really cool, and I want to play with it some more just because it's cool. Reload, well, I have card destruction down here in trash tier. Reload, come on down. Just complete unplayable. Remove Trap is interesting. I'm going to put it in side deck bad just because I think it's outclassed. MST, Breaker, I would play 3 copies of Double Snare before I play Remove Trap. So, unfortunately, side deck bad for Remove Trap. If it could remove face downs, might be a little better, but it can't. So, side deck bad, get out of here, Remove Trap. The Shallow Grave, I don't think is very good. I understand why you would put this in here, but for the Shallow Grave to work, your opponent does have to have a target in their graveyard, which means your opponent's always going to get a monster back. And that's just not where you want to be, especially if you're going to be playing, always playing 3 Swarm of Scarabs, sometimes playing Medusa Worm. You're going to be killing your opponent's monsters quite often, so let's not let them get some advantage back. I'm going to put that down in D tier. I don't think you ever really want to play this card. Snatch Steal. Snatch Steal is an interesting one. Obviously a very powerful card. It's good against Jinzo, somewhat. It's decent against Warriors and stuff like that, but I kind of opt to just not play this card at this point. I'm going to put it in side deck bad. I think there are just better things that you can be doing with your side. Swords of Revealing Light. I'm going to put it in S tier. Maybe not staple. I generally tend to, well, I put it in all of my Pac-Man lists, don't I? Every single one of them. Okay. Staple for swords. The Dark Door. Oh god, I love the Dark Door. But if you're letting your opponent attack with one monster, if you aren't able to have multiple monsters on your side of the field, your opponent just needs to attack the right one, and then they're going to be able to attack the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. You're never going to get off your Pac-Man effects. The Dark Door is not good. I'm sorry. As much as I like this card, D tier. Upstart Goblin is a good card. I'm not a fan of playing cards that just don't really do anything in the Pac-Man decks. You need a very high saturation of cards that do things. You're not digging to anything in particular. All of your cards are just good, solid cards. You don't need different pieces to put together to solve a puzzle or whatever. You just need a monster and something that can protect it. Upstart Goblin, also gaining your opponent 1,000 life, is not great. I've talked about this before over and over. The worst part of Pac-Man is you give your opponent so much time to draw into things, and just giving them extra time. Upstart Goblin sometimes can give your opponent 2 extra turns, and that is not where you want to be. So Upstart Goblin, I'm going to put in the D tier as well. Heavy Storm, I'm going to put this in side deck good. I generally don't opt to include it, but I do think it is a solid option for the side deck. My Body as a Shield. This one can be played in the main or the side. I do like it. Generally, I tend to play Compulse over it. Also, Pac-Man is very, very hard on its life total. And I do like to play cards that are a little bit more versatile. So I like My Body as a Shield. I like it as a card. I think it's totally fine in this deck. But would I opt to run it? Probably not. I would put it in C tier. Dark Room of Nightmare. I love this card so much. Man, the burn deck was so fun. I had so much fun with that, but trash tier. This card is awful. Metamorphosis is a card that I've seen run around with Scapegoat in the Pac-Man deck. I don't really understand it. Like, I think you're fine against the aggro decks anyway, so I don't really think you need to do this. Is it better than My Body? Probably not, actually. Is it as good as the cards on this? No? Yeah, I think meta is just not really where you want to be. Thousand Eyes Restrict is like so against your game plan. I'm actually going to put Scapegoat down here as well. The decks that these cards are good against, you're already just really good against. So why are we playing these? Why are we clogging up our monster zones whenever we want to just play more Pac-Man monsters? When we already have floodgates out the ass for the aggro decks? And then why are we playing meta to go along with it when we already have all of the floodgates, like I said, for the attackers? We don't need 1,000 Eyes Restrict to lock down our Lakuta, lock down our Swarm of Scarabs, when we could just not ever do that. These inclusions don't make sense to me, but I guess they're more powerful than Vengeful Bog Spirit. Sure. MST, I would always relegate to the side. I don't think you really want this in your main, but side deck good for sure. Knock, Staple. Staple? You don't have to play Knock. You definitely don't have to play Knock. That is one card that you could cut if you were so inclined to put other things in your deck. So I'm going to put it as S tier. I think it is very, very, very good, but I guess I wouldn't put it as like actual staple tier. Offerings to the Doomed. This is going to surprise people. I think this card's actually pretty decent in this deck. Just like playing Magic Jammer, Divine Wrath, stuff like that, you mitigate the downside so much. Not having a draw step for a turn is a huge downside. But I think you can mitigate that pretty well. That said, you have better options than Offerings to the Doom, so I'm going to actually put it in C tier. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. Stumbling, another controversial one. This card's not good in Pac-Man at all. It does the same thing as Vengeful Bog Spirit. Unless you're playing clowns, I would steer clear of Stumbling in Pac-Man. You won't be able to attack with your monsters. This is one of the cards that I get recommended all the time for Pac-Man. People are like, why aren't you playing Stumbling? Is this card good? Why not Stumbling? Where is it? It's not. It's a trap. It appears like it would be good in the deck, but it is not. It is going down in the trash tier with its brother, Vengeful Bog Spirit. Next up, Token Thanksgiving. This is a card that is generally used against Burn. I think it's a little outclassed in my mind. I would put it as side deck bad. It's a little too narrow. I'm not the biggest fan of it. Giant Trunade is an interesting one. I've thought about playing this from time to time, especially with Call of the Haunted in the deck, because your Call of the Haunted is going to be sticking so often. It is a way to just get that back and be able to use it. However, True just doesn't do a whole lot for you. I don't think it's the best side deck card because, again, like you've got Heavy Storm to deal with the problem, Double Snare, Breaker, MST. You just got a whole lot of better options, but I do think this is probably like a main deckable card sometimes. I don't know. Not a big fan of it. I'm going to put it in the D tier here. I think it's worth thinking about, especially if you're playing Call of the Haunted or Prima or something like that, but I don't really think you need to really do anything with it. Wave Motion Cannon. This card is excellent. I don't think it's S tier. I don't think it's up there with Book of Moon or Nobleman of Crossout. Well, it's better than Stealth Bird. I think it's better than Giant Rat. Okay. I'm going to put Wave Motion in S tier. As I do think it is better than these cards. Medusa Worm. Is it better than Medusa Worm? Yeah, it's better than Medusa Worm. Just because you already have 3 of that effect. I think Wave Motion Cannon is just excellent. I've talked about this card at length in Pac-Man videos. It helps kill your opponent so you don't give them that inevitability. You're already a deck that's looking to go long anyway, so you just get more value the longer your games go on, so you're just going to get immense value out of this card, and a lot of times it's just a lightning rod for MST and Dust Tornado and the likes. Your opponents feel pressured by it. They feel like they need to do something about it, so then they're not going to pressure your Gravity Binds, Level Limit Area Bs, stuff like that. And then you can just win through your normal means. Wave Motion Cannon, I think, deserves its S tier slot. Makes a whole lot of sense to me. Mystic Walk, side deck bad. This card's really, really bad here. The best thing that you can sack to it is Golem Sentry. And that only gains you 1800. A lot of times you're not going to be gaining very much life at all. So yeah, Mystic Walk. And you really don't want to be sacrificing your monsters anyway. So Mystic Walk, side deck bad. I have Heavy Slump here. Heavy Slump is not a spell card. Let me move that on over with the trap cards. Malice Dispersion. I think this is actually side deck good. This is discard a card, destroy all face-up continuous traps on the field. A lot of people might think this is a bad card, but I do think this is really good. Not really good. It's pretty good. It's going to deal with Decree. It's going to deal with like your opponent's opposing Nightmare Wheels, stuff like that. And it just deals with all of them. So if your opponent has, 2 of whatever, there you go. Malice Dispersion can clear it. That's not as relevant in this deck as something like Last Turn. I'm going to put Malice Dispersion down inside deck bad. I don't think this is a bad card necessarily. I think you could totally play it, but you just don't need that many of that effect. And for this deck, like, your opponent's never going to flip up double Decree, right? I guess like in a chain, you could flip up a trap. Your opponent flips Decree. You flip MST in response. They flip a Decree. You could play Malice Dispersion, get rid of everything, but that's so niche. Maybe it just needs to go inside deck bad. Swords of Concealing Light. This card's not good either. Let's put it inside deck bad. It's just not doing a whole lot. Lightning Vortex is an interesting one. You're bringing it in for like Reasoning Gate specifically, I guess. It's good against Jinzo. This deck really doesn't care about King Tiger at all. So Vortex, I'm going to put inside deck bad as well. I wouldn't really recommend playing this card. Kaiser Coliseum. It's not good either. Let's be real. We're gonna put that in D tier. Like, your opponent can still summon a monster while you have a monster. Cool. Like, it's not stopping any attacks really. It's just making it so your opponent can't play more monsters. But if you can't stop the initial one, who cares? Like, and even if you're stopping their attacks, a lot of times between Golem Sentry, Medusa Worm, Swarm of Scarabs, you can deal with their monster anyway. So they're not going to have like a chance to get a big board presence. I don't know. I don't really like Kaiser Coliseum here. I'm just going to put it in D tier. Move on. Mind Controls. This is side deck good. I think Mind Control is totally fine against Chaos Turbo. It has very good uses there. So pretty happy about that. Smashing Ground. Side deck good. I usually don't play this card. But Smashing Ground is an excellent way to get rid of Jinzo and some other problematic monsters. And then we get to Dark Snake Syndrome. This is not trashed here. This card is actually, it's not good, but it's not the worst card imaginable. The more I play with it, the more I'm like, yeah, this card's something. So welcome to the D tier. Look at this. Dark Snake Syndrome's on the same level as Chaos Sorcerer. Love to see that. Okay. That is it for the spells. Do I want to make any changes now? Do I think Guardian Sphinx is better than Prima, My Body as a Shield, and Offerings to the Doomed? Probably. Yeah, I think all of these are totally fine. Let's move on to the traps. All right, traps. First up, we have Heavy Slump. I get it. You have Golem Sentry and Guardian Sphinx. Wrong. Trash. Anti-Spell Fragrance. This card's a lot better than people might think. I don't think it's great. I know, I can't remember. Someone was pretty high on this card in Pac-Man. If you play it alongside a Swarm of Locusts, it gets better. Like your opponent has to set all their spells, and then you can just kind of pick them off a Swarm of Locusts. But, all in all, I still don't think this is a card that you should really super consider playing. I'm gonna put it here in C tier, and now I'm actually just gonna get the staple part out of the way. Because we're not going to have that many staples left, and I need to see these cards down here. And I don't want to keep just like scrolling down, scroll up, scroll down, scroll up. So here, you get to see most of the things other than the broken cards you all already know about. Secret Barrel. This one is not great. It's not terrible. Like, if you want to go down more of the burn route, I guess Secret Barrel is one of the first cards that you would be adding in. So I'll put it in C tier. I think, yeah, it's definitely better than Arsenal Bug. Is Giant Trunade better than Arsenal Bug? Is Arsenal Bug a trash tier card? Are these all trash tier cards? No, these cards like essentially do nothing, right? Whereas these have, yeah, okay, yeah. I think these make sense together. I'm just looking at them like in a vacuum. Arsenal Bug is just not even close to a lot of these. Yeah, okay, it's fine. Barrel Behind the Door. I'm generally not in favor of this card. It's fine, but I'm gonna put side deck Bat. I guess if you're more of a burn deck, this could be a good option to fight against burn. Okay, we'll put it in side deck Good. That's fine. Now I'm gonna have to scroll down some more. So if I need to go back up to S tier, because we're cutting that off now, then we'll go back up to S tier. Bottomless Shifting Sand. This card I think is actually along the lines of decent as well. I have played it from time to time in Pac-Man. Don't think it's amazing. I'm going to put it in C tier. I think that's fine. I'm actually going to bump down Sinister Serpent, I think. I think I would play all of these cards before I would play Sinister Serpent in the deck, to be honest. Maybe not 8-claw score. Well, yeah, I'm going to bump down Sinister Serpent. It's fine. I get it. But it's not like an integral... well, none of these are, integral parts of the Pac-Man deck, but I could see myself playing a lot of these before I play Sinister Serpent, unless I built my deck just like completely differently. Yeah, we're not playing Raigeki breaking stuff. I'm gonna bump it down to C. Ceasefire. Well, Ceasefire is, I think, a staple, actually. Is it a staple? Might just be S tier. Yeah, we'll put it in S tier. I think Ceasefire is very, 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 very good in this deck. For a lot of reasons, but maybe not like staple status. Like, all of these you're going to play 100% of the time no matter what. Ceasefire, maybe it gets out of there sometimes depending on your build. Compulse I think is very good. I'm going to go A tier for Compulse. In a vacuum, obviously Compulse is not the best card in GOAT format. It serves quite a bit of purpose here. It's really good against knock. Get your opponent to trade for it rather than one of your monsters. It can also take care of Thousand Eyes Restrict, and in a pinch, it is protection to help keep one of your monsters alive. So I do like Compulse a lot, and I think it's very playable, and I do opt to play it at 1 or 2 in a lot of the Pac-Man lists that I play. Call of the Haunted. This one, I'm not sure is on the level of like Stealth Bird, all that stuff, but I do think it is on a higher tier. Well, maybe like a really high B tier. This is one of the first cards I think I would cut from a list if I needed to add something else. So it's not super high up there. Oh, that makes me want to drop Guardian Sphinx down. I know I've been thinking about the Guardian Sphinx over and over and over, but like maybe, yeah, I'm going to drop Guardian Sphinx down here too. Because a lot of these cards, yeah, Guardian Sphinx seems a little better in C now that I'm looking at this. I'll move the monsters up here with the monsters just for any of you OCD people. I get it. Yeah, Call of the Haunted is good. I am opting to include it now, but it definitely has its downsides. It's always going to stick on the field. And like I said, it is one of the first cards that I would cut from a Pac-Man list if I needed to add something else to it. So it feels fine to be here in B tier. Maybe I'm actually moving 8-claw Scorpion down now too. Yeah, let's move 8-claw Scorpion down as well. Yeah, this seems this all seems fine to me. These cards I think are just, you know, quite a bit more powerful than those. Even Guardian Statue. And even though I think Guardian Sphinx is like better than an Interceptor Cannons or a Royal Keeper or something like that, maybe it's not enough better to also be in the league of like Call of the Haunted and stuff like that. And while I don't think Call of the Haunted can be an A tier, it makes sense down here, but it doesn't make sense on the same level as Guardian Sphinx. So yeah, we'll make those changes. Seems fine. Curse Seal of the Forbidden Spell. I'm going to put in side deck bad. The only reason you would play this is if you were expecting to play against a lot of giant Trunade decks. It's really good against that card. But that's really about it. Magic Cylinder, I'm going to put up an A tier. This, just like Call of the Haunted, pretty good card. I often opt to include it because it does deals damage to your opponent, obviously, but it also protects your monster. So it's another one of those like sort of versatile cards. It does more than one thing, so it kind of fits into the natural burn package that I've liked to have in the deck. Just Desserts, I think, is actually worse than Secret Barrel. You're not really ever going to opt to include this card. I'm going to put it down here in the D tier because you're never going to be playing Ojama Trio. I guess you could go like full burn, but I don't think that's really competitively viable in the deck to go like full Pac-Man burn. And even then, like, I think you just got some better options to do rather than play Ojama Trio and Just Desserts. Like, you just don't have the deck space for it. Divine Wrath, I think this card is underplayed in GOAT just in general. I think Divine Wrath is quite good. Not going to main it. You generally want to bring it in against like the BLS decks of the world and stuff like that. So I'm going to put it in side deck good. DNA Surgery is going to hang out down here with all of its DNA Surgery buddies in the D tier. And we're going to scroll down again. Dragon Capture Jar. That's a DNA Surgery buddy. Just like Insect Barrier basically does the same thing. Drop Off. Why is Drop Off? Drop Off, D tier. It's not a 0 like all of these other cards. Where's Time Seal? Here's Time Seal. Time Seal is also going to go in D tier along with Drop Off. Time Seal is a little better than Drop Off, but it's not a whole tier better. You could play this with like Mask of Darkness and Tsukuyomi to do that loop, but like just do that in Master Lock or some other deck. You don't really want that here in Pac-Man. Fake Trap. This is a good card. If you're playing a Pac-Man deck that has a lot more traps in it, like you're main decking Wall of Revealing Light, stuff like that, you're playing the DNA Surgery variants, something along those lines, Fake Trap is so much better. I'm going to put it in C tier for now because the deck generally doesn't play that many like continuous traps or things that stay on the board that Fake Trap will help out with, but I do see the power in Fake Trap. I just don't think it's quite there in most of like the most competitive builds. Solemn Judgment, we're going to have to scroll back up. Solemn Judgment is a staple. You play 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. Done. You just do it. I don't think we need to talk about that anymore. Magic Drain. This card is awful. Just not good. It has more value than these cards down here in the trash tier, but I'm not giving it higher than D tier. Magic Drain is just not a good card. You give your opponent's choice. A choice, basically discard a spell that's worse than the spell you just played. Cool. This never stops Heavy Storm. It never stops MST. If the card they're wanting to destroy is good enough. Magic Drain, just a very bad card. Mind Crush, also not good. Generally, you're not even playing Trap Dust Shoot in this deck, though I guess you could, but I'm going to go D tier for Mind Crush as well. Mirror Force, I know I didn't play it in the Insect version of the deck, but Mirror Force I think is an absolute staple if we're going for like as competitive as possible Pac-Man. I think, let's see, I haven't included Knock or Ceasefire. I think that's fine. Mirror Force is more of a staple than either of those because like you need protection and Mirror Force is premium protection. Mirror Wall is a card that I love, and honestly this card might be underexplored in GOAT format as well. But this is not the deck for it. Mirror Wall wants to be played in stuff like Warriors to beat the Mirror Match, same with Earth Aggro, stuff like that. If your monsters are already super small, Mirror Wall is not really going to protect anything, so I'm going to go D tier for Mirror Wall. Rivalry of Warlords. Is this one actually better than all the DNA Surgery buddies? I don't think Rivalry is that bad of a card, really. It does stop, like, Thousand Eyes Restrict from coming off of, like, scapegoats and stuff like that. I'm going to put this in C tier. I don't think, well, no. This is a sideboard card. I'm going to go side deck bad. It's not great. Ring of Destruction. All right, scroll back up. Staple. You're playing ring, you're playing ring, you're playing ring. Done. I know I didn't in the insect version of the deck, but again, competitively speaking, you're playing ring. That's a staple. Next, Royal Decree. Why in God's name would someone play this? I saw it in a list somewhere, and I'm like, well, I gotta put it on the stupid tier list now, but trash. Get it out of here. I don't ever want to see this card in my Pac-Man deck. 7 Tools of the Bandit. I've seen this in the main, I've seen it in the side, so I'm going to rank it with the main deck cards. I'm just going to go C tier, I think. Yeah, 7 Tools is fine. It's all right. I've played it in the side from time to time. Totally fine. It's good against Solemn Judgment. It can stop, Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, which Curse of Royal can't. But generally, I'm going to play Curse of Royal. But yeah, 7 Tools is a totally fine card. Bad Reaction to Samachi. Side deck bad. I played it in the burn list. If you're going to do like straight up burn and you want to meme Bad Reaction to Samachi, that's a great meme card. But competitively speaking, not great. Solemn Wishes, side deck good. This is the card that I often opt to side for burn. I really like this card. It's not good in every deck, but it's totally fine. Then we get to Astral Barrier and Spirit Barrier. Basically, these together make it so that your opponent can't attack. Where is it? This one. One of these, I can't remember which one it is, but if your opponent attacks a monster that you control, you can make it a direct attack instead. But the other one says your opponent can't attack directly. So your opponent can't attack if you have these together. It works a lot just like the DNA surgery stuff. Honestly, I think DNA surgery is even better because you can do more things with it. Whereas these two, you have to have both sides and like together, like apart from each other, I don't know. I wouldn't ever really play them. So D tier it is. Desert Sunlight is an okay card, but I think it's outclassed. I'll put it in C tier because it's got viability, especially if you are playing the flip effects like Moth and Mask of Darkness. But generally in this deck, you're going to be looking to play something like Ceasefire, Compulse, even like, where is it? There's a card down here. This one, the Spell Absorbing Life. I think I would actually play that over Desert Sunlight because it has a little bit more utility. I have Malice Dispersion on here again. I don't know why I have Malice Dispersion twice. I guess I think I keep thinking this is a trap card because it's got all like the purpley redness, and it's not. It's a spell card. Threatening Roar. I think this is a trap. A lot of people opt to play Threatening Roar. Like, oh, you need to protect your monsters. You need to protect your monsters. If your opponent can't attack, you protect your monsters. Well, yeah, sure, but like, you just got better ways to do that. Threatening Roar, though, is not the worst card. I think it's better than all the D tier cards. I'll put it in C tier, and I'm going to go find Wabaku. Where is Wabaku? I know it's there. Here it is. Okay, I'm going to put that in C tier as well. They're both comparable. Threatening Roar is a little bit better, but pretty comparable. We'll put both of those in C tier for the same reason. Trap of Border Racer. I'm sorry, Petty. I know he's going to be watching this, and like he's already told me is the thing he's looking to the most for this whole week is just to flame me for the tier list. But Trap of Border Racer, not good. Not good. Put it in the side deck bad. Like, it's not the worst card in the world, but come on. Like, Barrel Behind the Door is better. Solemn Wishes is better. You can do better than Trap of Border Racer against Burn. Trap Hole is an interesting one. You just have so many cards better than this that you're just not going to play it, but it's not the worst card in the format, so I'll put it in C tier. Torrential Tribute, no. Don't play this card. It's better than all these cards that do literal nothing. So I'm going to put it in D tier, but Torrential is just not good. I wouldn't even opt to side it against the aggro decks or anything like that. Just don't play Torrential in this deck. You need to keep your monster count like as high as you can on the board. Don't play Torrential. Wall of Revealing Light, however, I'm pretty high on this card. Generally, I opt to side it, and I don't think you should main deck it. You can if you want to go down more of like the fake trap route. And if you do want to main it might be in this B tier here. I think it's higher than the C tier, but I always side deck it because like you really only want it as like extra outs to like a level 2 or something in the aggro matchup. So I'm going to put it in side deck good. Curse of Royal, side deck good. This card is excellent. You could main it just like Wall of Revealing Light. but generally it's going to be seen in the side. Cursive Royal, pretty good. Dust Tornado, just like, since I put MST down on the side, I'm going to rank Dust Tornado on the side as well. I'm going to make it side deck bad. The reason MST is good and Dust Tornado is bad is MST deals with Decree. Dust Tornado can deal with Decree, though. Well, you are correct. You can chain this to Royal Decree and destroy it. But outside of that, your Dust Tornado is going to be useless, and you just don't need more of that effect. Gravity Bind, we need to scroll up for. Gravity Bind is going to go up here in the S tier. Yeah, I'm not going to make it a staple. I've heard good reasoning to not play Gravity Bind. Sometimes people cut down to 1. A lot of times I like to lead on Gravity Bind rather than level limit Area B, just so it's not like a sitting target to make my opponent know, sort of how to formulate their plays and sequence stuff on their turns. But level limit is definitely a better card, so I'm going to put Gravity Bind in S tier. I think you should definitely play it in your deck, but I wouldn't put it up here in staple with all of these other cards. All right, scrolling back down. Jar of Greed. Where's Upstart Goblin? D tier. Jar of Greed as well. Same reasons. Mask of Restrict. That's kind of interesting, but I'm going to put it in side deck bad. Just so many other cards to deal with stuff. You just don't need Mask of Restrict. All right, and now we are to Narrow Pass, and I had to familiarize myself with this card. It's been a while. This card can only be activated when both players have 2 monsters or less on their respective sides of the field. Both players can only normal summon up to 2 additional monsters on their side of the field. Holy crap, this card is awful. Trash. Oh, why is that even here? Trash tier. It's terrible. Needle Sealing, I see a lot of people play this in the main, and I absolutely think you could main deck it, but I think generally it's kind of been agreed upon as a side deck card at this point. I do think it is one of your better side options. This card's great in the matchups that it's great against. So I would put this as side deck good, and this would be one of the better ones for the sideboard, I think. Nightmare Wheel, here we go. That's going up here in A tier. I think Nightmare Wheel is very, very good. I wouldn't put it on S tier with like Ceasefire and Gravity Bind and Knock and stuff like that. But Nightmare Wheel works perfectly in the deck. It does a whole lot of things for you. It protects your monsters. It deals a little extra chip damage. Whenever you're not going first, it can help your opponent not out-tempo you by being able to flip up a flip effect monster on their second turn. Nightmare Wheel, just a very good card. So A tier, I think, is totally appropriate for it. Raigeki Break. This one, you're definitely not going to main deck. I'm going to put it in side deck bad. You're just not going to play Raigeki Break, I don't think. I think Divine Wrath is so much better in this deck for a lot of reasons. You just don't need this. You've got like your sideboard destroying like spell and trap destruction or whatever. You want everything to be a spell. If you can, if you're playing against like Decree decks, and like that's the one back row that you really need to deal with anyway. So Raigeki Break just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Reckless Greed. Lord, is this worse than Jar of Greed and Upstart for this deck? Is this good enough to put in the trash tier? I don't think so. I don't think so, because like for the same reason that I put Offerings to the Doomed so high, you can kind of mitigate the draw loss a little bit if you've got Lakuta going on. So I'm not going to put it in trash tier, but when you're arguing between trash and D tier, clearly just don't play the card. Sakuretsu Armor, not the worst card in the world. I'm going to put it up here with Trap Hole in C tier. Generally, like you're going to be playing so many blanket effects to stop attacks and stuff like that, that you're just not going to want Sakuretsu Armor. But that's a totally fine, viable option if you really feel the need to play it. Spell Shield Type 8, I think, is also going to go in C tier. Is it going to go in B? No, I wouldn't put it up in B tier. I put it down in C tier. This one is a little bit more versatile than like a Magic Jammer, but you do have to discard a spell, and I don't know. I don't really like that. Like you do play a decent amount of spells in the deck, but I would personally opt for Magic Jammer and stuff above Spell Shield Type 8, but I don't think it's a bad card by any means. I see the utility. Ojama Trio, I do think is not good. I'm just going to put it down in D tier just to go with its buddy, Just Desserts. Ultimate Offering is an interesting one. Pay a bunch of life points, set a bunch of Pac-Man monsters. The only problem, you don't play a lot of monsters. So is this just trashed here? Yeah, I think Ultimate Offering might just be trashed here. It's not doing anything for you. I guess it's kind of cool. Like you can do it in your opponent's battle phase, right? So like they attack and you let the attack go through, and then you flip Ultimate Offering and just pay 500 still in their battle phase. Trash or D tier? Is it worse than Reckless Greed? Probably. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it in trash tier. I think that's fine for it. Widespread Ruin, same with Sakuretsu Armor. We'll put it up here in C tier. Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, we're going to go down here with Raigeki Break and Side Deck Bad. Just don't play it. Royal Command, I think is actually good. I've played around with this card quite a bit. It's totally fine. I think it's better than a lot of these sideboard bad options. Yeah, I think it's quite a bit better than those. I would put it a tier up in sideboard good. Magic Jammer, it's not going in D tier. I'm just scrolling up. B tier or C tier? I'm going to put it in B tier. I think this card's actually good. Man, do I want to move up Call of the Haunted and Cylinder? Probably not. All of these are still like first cuttable from the deck, so I think that's fine. They're definitely on a level higher than the C tier, I think. I do think all three of these are better than like Sakuretsu, Trap Hole, Spell Shield, and Widespread Ruin. And Magic Jammer just being a tier higher than Spell Shield Type 8 makes sense to me. Yeah, I think that's fine for Magic Jammer, and I think all of those are cool there. The Spell Absorbing Life. This one's interesting. I haven't played with it a whole lot, but this card has very much impressed me in Kuhb and in a little bit in constructed play. So I'm going to actually give this a side deck good. I wouldn't main it, but it's basically just Ceasefire to gain life, so like it's good against burn. You could definitely play this over Barrel Behind the Door or Solemn Wishes if you opt to. So I think that's a totally viable side deck option that a lot of people wouldn't think about. Hallowed Life Barrier, however, not a big fan of that one. Just going to drop that in side deck bad. Interdimensional Matter Transporter. I get it. Just play Compulse. It's not versatile. It's not very good. It's better than this trash tier here, but because it does actually protect from something. But yeah, D tier seems pretty good for Interdimensional Matter Transporter. Judgment of Anubis. This card's not good either. D tier. It's just... It only stops spells, and that's really what it's got going for it. It doesn't stop Raigeki Break, Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, Dust Tornado, stuff like that. So it just doesn't protect against enough, and it's not like free like 7 Tools of the Bandit is. So Judgment of Anubis might surprise some people. It's getting a D tier. The card's not very good, even though it's a secret rare. I wish I could play more of it. I love the card. D tier is where it's landing. Malice Dispersion we've already ranked, so we're gonna move that over here. Zingzhenhu, I don't think it's very good. We'll put it in D. A lot of times, and one of the reasons I don't like Swarm of Locusts is you just don't care about your opponent's back row all that much, generally, so here it is down in the D tier. Trap Dust Shoot, I'm gonna put in C tier. Not a huge fan of it. I generally don't run it in Pac-Man. Some people do, and I can't really fault them. Trap Dust Shoot's one of the best cards in the format for a reason, but I just don't think you need it here too much. Like, if you send a monster back to your opponent's deck, like a BLS, that's the best argument that I've heard for Trap Dust Shoot. You can get their BLS out of their hand. Well, your deck is giving your opponent just so much time to just draw back into it that Dust Shoot's not great. Now, the hand advantage is quite good, but Dust Shoot still, we're going to drop it in C tier. We'll call it a day there. Bottomless Trap Hole. Well, we got a nice opening in C tier for that one. Just go in there with your friends, Sakuretsu, Widespread, and Trap Hole. But yeah, let's kind of look over this. Our staple tier. All of these look good to me. I think I would play these in every single Pac-Man deck, no matter what. S tier, I'm playing these in all of my lists, at least the competitive ones. So those all make sense to me. A tier, Giant Rat is an interesting one. I do think if you are going to play Recruiters, then Giant Rat is the best one. And I think it's the best kind of by a mile. So this makes sense to me, especially if, we're going to put Exiled Force up here. Don't fault people for going with the Recruiter route, so that's totally fine. B tier, we've got, the worst of the good Pac-Man monsters, I guess. The Guardian Statue's not terrible, it's just outclassed. Yeah, and then some other options with some other cards that I opt to include, so you can definitely include any of these in your deck if you really want to. C tier, you can. They're not bad. Yeah, I don't think any of these cards are necessarily just bad. But D tier is where we could start getting to the bad. So I'm pretty happy with this. But again, if you all think I missed anything or you disagree with something, let me know. This has been a pretty long video, and of course, this is going to be wrapping up Pac-Man week. However, I'll see you all on Sunday for the start of Machine Week. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll be back with the next one.